So I don't know about you guys these days, but my tolerance for celebrity culture is just at an all-time low for various different reasons, but a big one over the last year and a bit has been Gaza and Israel, and how many celebrities came out vocally in support of the Israeli destruction of Gaza and then kind of like slinked into the background like they'd never said this stuff. And what's so annoying is, of course, they have a huge public platform and they're helping shape the conversation because this was like the liberal hive mind in Hollywood, and of course, like every single conservative like pushing this. And then no one ever asks them about it. Like, no one ever says, do you regret saying that terrible thing? Do you regret posting that terrible thing? What do you have to say about it now? No one ever asks. And what happens is we can live in a society where people advocate for the worst crimes against humanity under the guise of sometimes like liberal identity and liberal identity politics, and then they can just move on with their lives. And you can be rewarded. Like, look at Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister. He literally said that if Israel shut off the water to Gaza, that would be okay. That's a war crime and collective punishment. So that guy was rewarded by becoming the Prime Minister. Joe Biden, of course, did this. He should be in prison and locked up, but he just slinks away, and we haven't even heard from him since he stepped down from office. And there's just so many voices in Western media that just advocated for so much terrible shit and also continue to do so. And we just have to be okay with them being absolute monsters. And I'm going to use a couple examples today. I could use 100 examples, but these popped up recently for different reasons. So Gal Gadot got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I don't know why, because she's not a good actress, but even so, she hasn't actually even been in anything good. It's not that she was in like some amazing movies and we can kind of understand it. It's like she literally is not a good actress and hasn't been in a good film. And she's been in like a lot of terrible action movies. And then of course like Amy Schumer just popping up, and Jimmy Fallon. Did he ask her anything about it? Of course not. And also Neil Druckmann, of course, the creator of The Last of Us, has been doing the media rounds and did this big YouTube video of Alex Garland talking about The Last of Us. It got a lot of headlines. And again, these people have all advocated for terrible things to different degrees, and they can just stay like relatively quiet for a tiny bit, come back, and no one confronts them with it, and no one cares. But I don't know about you, but it just feels so insane that you get punished for caring about humanity. I guess that is just the curse of being a leftist, that when we see good actors who've advocated for good things, they get punished. And I even think about this as well. Like Bella Ramsey especially, but also Pedro Pascal to a lesser extent. You go to work every day to work for one of your mates who advocated for like the destruction of Gaza. It's like this club, isn't it? Like they don't give a shit. Do you reckon they even spoke about it? Probably not, because that shows you that even people who might care about humanity are just silent for the sake of their careers. The few celebrities who have principles increasingly get targeted. And as we're seeing in America right now, there's a complete war on free speech to completely stamp out anti-Israeli rhetoric from even things like college campuses and deporting people who are US citizens for doing so. So I want to talk about all of this today. And if you want to support my channel, check out Patreon or support me on YouTube memberships, and also check me out on social media at the Kavernacle on Instagram and on Blue Sky. So let's talk about this. So recently, you guys might have seen it, that Gal Gadot has received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and she posted on Instagram, "There are moments in life that feel almost too big to put into words. This is one of them. To see my name on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, surrounded by legends who have inspired me, is beyond anything I ever imagined. This star represents years of hard work, passion, and the unwavering belief of so many people who've lifted me up along the way." This was actually disrupted by protesters, and I just want to make things clear for people. People are not protesting Gal Gadot because she's Israeli. You don't really see Natalie Portman, who was born there, get the same level of scrutiny, because although she is pro-Israeli, she's also had like lots of criticisms of Netanyahu and the Israeli right wing. And although she is like a liberal Zionist, she doesn't draw that criticism to herself because also she wasn't in the IDF. So Gal Gadot was in the IDF. She was in the IDF in 2006. She insists it wasn't a combat role, and most women, especially at this time, were not in combat roles in the IDF, but there were women who were in combat roles as well. So her service record isn't public. She hasn't really spoke about her experience in the military. We can also criticize people for joining the military, even though they have mandatory service. It is relatively easy to get out of it compared to a lot of other countries. But regardless, I've said this throughout, and I covered this like 4 years ago. I've always said, If you grew up in Israel and you served in the IDF as like an 18-year-old or whatever, that is of course bad. But the problem comes later is that if you went out and started telling people, yeah, I was brainwashed in this cult, that I had to join this military and I willingly went along with it, and I regret it so bad because I realized what terrible things we were doing, that's completely different. And that is actually the experience of a lot of Israelis who become very strong critics of, just Zionism generally. They actually did serve in the IDF. So she probably thinks that everyone hates her just because she's Israeli and did something normal for Israelis. The problem is just with her generally, she did this and then has used her public platform to continuously advocate for Israeli colonialism. I might play some of my old video because I don't want to go through this all again. She posted her support of the invasion of Gaza in 2014. Of course, she's also supported what has gone on in Gaza recently. But Gal Gadot, former IDF soldier, says, "My heart breaks. My country is at war. I worry for my family, my friends. I worry for my people. This is a vicious cycle that has been going on for far too long. Israel deserves to live as a free and safe nation. Our neighbours deserve the same. I pray for the victims and their families. I pray for this unimaginable hostility to end. I pray for our leaders to find the solution so we can live side by side in peace. I pray for better days." Now, it's a really, really interesting and biased framing. The fact she can't actually bring herself to say the Palestinians is really telling. Also, her country is at war is very telling. This isn't a war. This isn't some sort of self-defense by Israel. They provoked this reaction and then use this reaction to disproportionately target civilians in Gaza. So I'm going to put some pictures on screen. Here's Gal Gadot when she served in the IDF. It was in, I think, 2006, during actually the Israeli war with Lebanon. And she says she was just a fitness instructor for 2 years. You cannot find her service record online. I've tried. Maybe you can, but I've looked pretty hard and I can't find it. "I'm sending my love and prayers to fellow Israeli citizens, especially to all the boys and girls who are risking their lives protecting my country against the horrific acts conducted by Hamas, who are hiding like cowards behind women and children. We shall overcome. Shabbat Shalom. Hashtag we are right. Hashtag free Gaza from Hamas. Hashtag stop terror. Hashtag coexistence. Hashtag love IDF." And that's what makes it so curious. This is the same time that the Israelis have broken the ceasefire, killed like hundreds and hundreds of people, and are very intent on destroying Gaza completely this time. So she uses her public platform to talk about this again. Her quote from the Variety article is, "There is a challenge for people to speak on social media because there's so much hate going on and so many bots and so many angry people that are looking for a cause," she says. Although she acknowledges the frivolity with which celebrity opinions can be regarded, she says her advocacy is always rooted in speaking on behalf of the voiceless. Even when her statements have sparked divisive reactions, after October 7th, "I don't talk politics because who cares about celebrities talking politics? I'm an artist, I want to entertain people, I want to bring hope and a beacon of light." But on October 7th, when people were abducted from their homes, from their beds, men, children and the elderly, who were going through the horrors of what happened that day, I could not be silent. I was shocked by the amount of hate, by the amount of how much people think they know when they actually have no idea. And also, by how the media is not fair many times, so I had to speak up. I'm not a hater. I'm 8th generation Israeli. I'm an indigenous person of Israel, even though her grandfather migrated to Israel. I'm all about humanity, and I felt like I had to advocate for the hostages. When your compass is clear, your conscience is clean, I know what I'm advocating for, and I know what I wish for the world. I'm praying for better days for all. I want everyone to have a good life, prosperity, and the ability to raise their children in a safe environment. So you've heard that sort of thing a million times. Someone whose grandfather migrated to Israel is saying they're indigenous to the region. Someone whose family changed their name to make it appear like they are from the Middle East. Netanyahu, of course, did that. It's a very common practice in Israel. But talking about like humanity, and you had to speak up because like the media's biased and people don't know what they're talking about, just shows you the perpetual victim complex of people who grow up in this cult of Zionism, and even stronger in Israeli society, where they think the media is against them. That's absolutely insane. She lives in America. People in America, can you tell me, did you ever see any media, especially in October 2023, that was pro-Palestinian? I don't think there was any. And it was overwhelmingly manufacturing consent for the complete destruction of Gaza. And people like Gal Gadot were the voice for this. And obviously she's saying, I don't talk about politics, but let me use like this moment where everyone's looking at me to talk about me being indigenous to Israel and advocating for common humanity, while saying nothing about people from the country I was born in destroying another territory for colonialism. Again, like, this is just so annoying to me because No, like, why is there no challenge to this? Why is there no challenge to this? It's because, again, the whole Western elite agrees that we should destroy Palestine for Israeli colonialism and generally capitalism, and it would be so horrifying to confront anyone about supporting this stuff. Gal Gadot is probably like the most famous face of Israel in like American Hollywood and American celebrity culture. But the actual worst person is Amy Schumer, who was posting non-stop vile racist shit about Muslims and Palestinians and basically trying to shame everyone into like supporting everything she was doing. She's been on Jimmy Fallon recently. I just feel sick seeing this stuff. Like, how can we just normalize a culture so much? She posted all of that, went quiet when she realized how bad it was getting, comes back, and like we don't confront her. And again, the Hollywood press, Variety, again giving her a platform without challenge to talk about this. So this is like a year ago now, but the Jimmy Fallon thing was recently. So she spoke about all the shit she'd been saying. So she talks about the current discourse in the Middle East. This is April 24. The focus is so razor sharp on Jewish people, but not on Hamas. It's very strange. So I'd recommend to read a book, Israel, A Simple Guide to the Most Misunderstood Country on Earth by Noah Tishby. Again, someone Neil Druckmann likes as well. Or anyone Jewish people wrote down ever. Yeah, don't read that book. None of this has stopped Schumer from getting jobs. Take the topic of the Israel-Hamas war. She's been scrutinised for social media posts, which some feel can conflate Palestinians with Hamas. She was also criticised for sharing a video of MLK Jr. condemning anti-Semitism, saying that Israel has a right to exist. Bernice King responded to Schumer, saying that her father was against anti-Semitism. He certainly would call for Israel's bombing of Palestine to cease and the hostages be released. It's gotten to this place, Schumer says, where you can't speak up for other Jews without people feeling like it's a slight to the conditions in Gaza. I don't agree with anything that Netanyahu is doing, and neither do the Israelis I know. Of course, what's going on in Gaza is sickening, horrifying, and unthinkable, and I don't think it's okay to hate anyone because they were born Jewish. I need to remind people, she never said anything about Gaza being horrifying until this interview, right? So months later, because she went quiet. She went quiet before the end of 2023 because she realized, oh, yeah, this is actually getting so bad, and what they're doing is so bad. And now I hate Netanyahu. I hate what he's doing. I didn't hate what he was doing like a couple months ago when I agreed with everything he did and supported what he was doing. But again, she comes back, gives this interview, talks about it, barely any pushback, and frames it all as, oh, you know, there's so much of a focus on Jewish people and not Hamas. Is she insane? Is she insane? How has there not been a massive focus on Hamas and there still is an insane focus on them compared to what Israel have done? And obviously it's fine to talk about like anti-Semitism. I've even called out people who use pro-Palestine sentiment to actually push anti-Semitism. Loads of people who are pro-Palestinian have nothing to do with anti-Semitism, do not believe anything to do with anti-Semitism. But again, she doesn't even realize if you are a fighter against anti-Semitism, Zionism is terrible for this because you're telling people, and loads of people are telling people, that the Jewish identity or religious beliefs are tied to the nation state of Israel, which is a complete modern construct. And we always have conversations that, oh my God, like Islamic State don't represent Muslim. But we never really have conversations the other way because literally this religion and this ethnic identity has been hijacked by extremist colonialism by the overwhelming majority of people who believe in this religion or subscribe to this ethnic identity, they agree with what Israel's doing right now. So that's what we should be talking about, how this religion has been hijacked by this movement, and it's not something that has always been around. Zionism has not always been around, and it's not something Jewish people have been advocating for their entire existence. It started in the 1800s by Europeans, and the people who actually did it in the 40s compare themselves to the American colonialists who created the United States, right? But again, it's just infuriating. You have to see this person trying to backtrack it, get a very friendly interview, and now we're just going to have to see her forever, and she's going to think people hate her because she's Jewish. People don't hate you because you're Jewish, they hate you because you advocated for all this terrible shit. So one more example I want to talk about, and this was probably the most disappointing to me because I really like The Last of Us, and I've made multiple videos about The Last of Us, and I've also made a video about the Israeli-Palestinian politics of The Last of Us as well, particularly part 2, but also part 1. And I think people are a bit insane about The Last of Us, and I think Neil Druckmann deserves criticism. But one thing I'm going to say to people, and I think this is going to go into a video I'm going to make about media literacy on the left, because I feel this in regards to like Dune as well, because as someone who loves Dune, I've read all 6 books. I think a lot of leftist people just grab on to a catchy take, and they just say it without playing it. Like I've seen so many people say, oh my God, The Last of Us is right-wing pro-Israeli propaganda, and they'll cite one Vice article which outlined the Israeli influence on the game, right? That's the article I always seen, and I've referenced this article before, but as someone who has probably collected all the information about how this game is influenced by Israeli politics, and I put it in a video because I've listened to all these podcasts, I've listened to him talk loads about it. These games are not explicit right-wing pro-Israel propaganda. We have to remember, despite Druckmann being the director and like one of the co-creators of The Last of Us, not every single thing in video games is just influenced by one guy. I'm thinking about the second Kingdom Come game that I've been playing through, and I really love it. But the guy who directed it is a conservative, like real conservative. But when you're playing that game, it doesn't all come through and you're like, oh my God, I'm playing like fash propaganda. The same with The Last of Us. The only people who notice the Israeli politics in it are people who actually know about politics generally, right? It's not that explicit to your average person, and it's not going to be explicit when we watch things like Last of Us Part 2, and even with things like Jackson in both games. That is basically like a socialist kibbutz from Israel in like the 1950s and 60s, right? How many people would know that just from watching it? They wouldn't. And also the message of Last of Us is a liberal Zionist message about cycles of violence and people just perpetually getting revenge on each other. And the criticism of the Israeli politics is it makes it seem like both sides are at fault and can't forgive each other, and this cycle will just keep going round, not that Israel and Zionists are the instigators because of their colonialism. That's the critique of the Israeli politics, not that it's somehow saying in the game that Israel has a right to exist. So please, leftists, don't get so reactionary. And if you haven't actually consumed media or even read about the dialogue around it, don't just throw out hot takes to just make the conversation toxic. Like, I think we can have a more nuanced criticism. But again, this is why it's so insane, because the message of The Last of Us Part 2, I'm not going to spoil Season 2, and this isn't the main plot about, like, Joel and Ellie, and that's another point. This isn't even the main plot of the game. This is like a side plot. Basically, there's a messaging in the game about how cycles of revenge can lead to terrible stuff, like wiping out an entire group of people. And in that, you'd think someone who wrote that game would think that Israelis using the attacks to wipe out Gaza is a bad thing. But no, that didn't happen. I remember Neil Druckmann put this out. Of course, you know, this misinformation about the babies that Chuck Schumer recently spoke about, despite the fact it's been debunked. Neil posted this, but he says, pure evil, this is what Israel is defending herself from. Reminder that Hamas's charter calls for the complete destruction of Israel. Given the opportunity, they do this to every man, woman and child and baby in Israel. Never again, Israeli flag. Posted an Israeli flag on his account as well. He's gone a bit quiet recently as well, but he was posting pro-Israeli stuff on his Instagram stories about like Eurovision and everything. That is just so funny, isn't it? A guy writes a game about why something is bad, and then when it happens in real life, he supports the bad thing. I don't know if this has happened with anyone else, but again, like, it's another person who supported this terrible shit and is now, you know, getting all the accolades, all the prestige. Like I said, he's doing that interview with Alex Garland, and he's going to be in the awards conversation probably again because The Last of Us is so insanely popular, and he's the co-showrunner, right? And it's frustrating because you know he's a smart guy, he's a talented guy, and you know he's thought on a deeper level about these games. Like, that's why The Last of Us is so successful. Like The Last of Us or don't, he has pushed the gaming medium more into the mainstream discourse in terms of the cinematic realm. And he's made like really, really good games because he's obviously like a talented guy. But then again, he's so brainwashed by this cult, he literally goes against the messaging in his own game that he wrote. And is anyone going to ask him about this? Is anyone going to say, you know, your Last of Us Part 2 game was very influenced by your upbringing in Israel. This guy was raised in an illegal extremist West Bank settlement until he was 9 and moved to America, right? And here's the thing, right? I'm a leftist. I think people can change. I think people could be rehabilitated. If he came out and said, you know, I was raised in Israel in this like extremist settlement, all of that stuff in my head, I thought like I'd moved past it. When this stuff happened, I was just seeing such terrible shit. I put out this take. I really, really regret it. And I'm like rethinking my stance on like supporting the Israeli state or some shit like that. I think a lot of people would respect that introspection and be way more forgiving of what he did. But again, he's not going to say that. No one's going to ask these questions. And even people who are allegedly pro-Palestinian, they are going to work with him still. And they are. So what is the fucking point? And it just shows you all these cases. There's just a complete like uniformed opinion among the elite in the West that all these people deserve to die. And anyone who advocated for it is actually cool and fine, and you never have to challenge them on it again. Like, we are seeing some people saying we're going to take legal action against, like, Keir Starmer. We're going to take legal action against people who supported what's happening. But it's not going to get anywhere, sadly. And it's just, like, a disgusting world we live in, where if you told people this before time, that there's going to be an event like what we're seeing, and every celebrity you know is basically going to support it, and like all these posts supporting it, and then just kind of slink away after they've manufactured consent for this stuff, and then no one will ever ask them about it again. And they don't care about it anymore. Like, none of them post about it. None of them post about pro-Israeli stuff, but they were all doing it. They were all doing it. And I think that's why increasingly, I think with younger generations, they see celebrity culture for what it is. It's just the Hunger Games. Now, the inspiration for the Hunger Games was the author of the books was watching game shows while the Iraq war was going on. So it would like cut to the news afterwards and you see terrible footage from Iraq, but then you just have this like very privileged position in America where they're just playing game shows while their country are like killing people, right? And destroying a whole nation. And that is what we're seeing again, probably on steroids now. And it just shows you when the US wants to do something, every mechanism just unites around the government to make sure everyone just agrees with this. Thankfully now we have alt media, we have social media. It's not the Iraq war days. But again, it's still the elite in the UK, America, all this stuff. And these are 3 examples, but I could use a million examples. And these people will never face repercussions and they will never apologize. And no one in the press will ever challenge them about it. I would love someone in the press to ask 3 of these people, literally quote back what they said and ask them about it. Because Neil Druckmann was spreading that misinformation which actually facilitated the destruction of Gaza, right? So someone can ask him, you got caught up at the moment, do you regret sharing that now it's been thoroughly debunked? Is anyone going to ask that? Highly, highly doubt it. And speaking of Alex Garland as well, I'm so happy he's working with actual war criminals now to make art house cinema about the illegal Iraq war. I'm just sick of living in a world that just has like no morals. And that is the curse of being a leftist, is there is no ignorance around this stuff. You just know everything. And it sucks, and it's bad, and you can predict bad things happening again, and you just get to watch, and the only satisfaction is, oh yeah, I was right about that. It's not much satisfaction. So that is it for the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.